The roar of a high-powered rifle shatters the evening calm. A single bullet tears through Ivankov's abdomen, and the myth of his invincibility abandons on the asphalt. He doesn't die instantly. He falls to the ground, beginning an agony that would last for 73 days. This wasn't just an assassination attempt. It was a declaration of war. Who was this man? And who dared to pull the trigger on a king of the underworld? To understand the ghost, you must know the man. Viatcheslav Ivankov was born in 1940 in the Soviet Republic of Georgia to Russian parents, but he grew up on the tough streets of Moscow. From a young age, he earned the nickname Yaponchik, or Little Japanese, for his slightly Asian facial features. It was a name that, over time, would become synonymous with fear and power. His first brush with organized violence wasn't in crime, but in sports. He was an amateur wrestler, a background that gave him the discipline and brute force that would define his future. His first prison sentence came from a bar fight. He always claimed he was defending a woman's honor, thus planting the first seed of his image as a principled bandit. But after his release, the mask of honor fell away. Ivankov rose quickly in the criminal world. He joined a gang that operated with terrifying cunning. They used forged police documents to enter the homes of the wealthy. Once inside, they would loot them mercilessly. Here, the duality that would define him was born: the wrestler who defended honor and the calculating predator who used the badge of the law to break it. This contradiction was the foundation of his legend. To understand Yaponchik, you must understand the secret society that forged him. The Viatcheslav, the thieves in law. They were a brotherhood of elite criminals, born in the brutality of the Stalin-era gulags. They saw themselves as the guardians of the criminal traditions that the revolution had tried to erase. They lived by a strict, unbreakable code, the Vorovskoye zakon. The rules were absolute. A VOR had to renounce his family, because his only loyalty was to the brotherhood. He could never hold a legitimate job. He lived solely by theft. And the most sacred rule of all: never, under any circumstances, cooperate with the state or the police. The code was an ideological rebellion against Soviet totalitarianism, which demanded absolute loyalty to the party. The Vori created a state within a state, a parallel society with its own laws, its own courts, and its own form of justice. Breaking the code was punishable by death. In 1974, within the walls of Moscow's infamous Butyrka prison, Viatcheslav Ivankov was crowned. It wasn't a promotion, it was a baptism. His body became his criminal passport. The tattoos were a language, a resume of his crimes and his status. An 8-pointed star on his shoulders meant "I kneel before no one." A church on his chest, with the number of domes, represented the number of convictions. Yaponchik was no longer just a man. He was a member of the underworld's royalty. The fall of the Soviet Union in 1991 unleashed chaos, and from that chaos, Yaponchik emerged. After serving 10 years of a 14-year sentence, he was mysteriously released. Rumors spoke of the intervention of a powerful politician and a bribed judge. In March 1992, with a business visa stating he would work in the film industry, he landed in the United States. He settled in Brighton Beach, Brooklyn, the heart of the Russian-American community, a place known as Little Odessa. His arrival did not go unnoticed. The Russian Ministry of Internal Affairs alerted the FBI. A top-tier criminal had arrived to manage and control the activities of Russian organized crime in the country. The press and authorities soon dubbed him the Red Godfather. But there was another story, one whispered in the cafes of Brighton Beach. It said that Ivankov was not an emissary, but a fugitive, that he had fled Russia because the country had become too dangerous even for him. A new generation of criminals, young, ruthless, and capitalist was taking over. And they didn't respect the old Vory like Yaponchik. The truth, most likely, lay somewhere in between. Ivankov's arrival was a symptom of the corruption devouring post-Soviet Russia. And the myth of the Godfather served everyone. It gave the FBI a clear, visible target. It gave the media an easy story to sell. And it gave Ivankov himself an aura of power that made him fearsome in a new territory, whether it was entirely true or not. The myth of the untouchable Godfather crumbled on the streets of New York. The crime that led to his downfall was extortion. The victims were Alexander Volkov and Vladimir Voloshin, two Russian businessmen who ran an investment firm called Summit International. The amount in dispute was nearly $3 million, a loan from Moscow's Shara Bank that they had failed to repay. The bank's partners turned to Ivankov to persuade them to pay. Here, Yaponchik made his biggest mistake. A modern Mafia boss would have kept his distance, insulated by layers of intermediaries. But Ivankov was an old-school VOR. His code demanded personal involvement. He met with his associates, planned the extortion, and delivered the threats himself. This direct involvement made him an easy target for the FBI's microphones. On June 8, 1995, the FBI broke down his door. Ivankov was arrested. In his apartment, they found thousands of dollars in cash and 7 fake passports. He was convicted of extortion and conspiracy and sentenced to nearly 10 years in a federal prison. For the FBI, it was their first major public victory against the Russian Mafia. Ironically, the same code of honor that had made him a legend in the gulags was what led to his capture in America. He was an analog criminal on a world of digital surveillance. In July 2004, after completing his sentence, Ivankov was deported to Russia, but he did not return as a free man. Awaiting him was a trial for a double murder committed in 1992 on a Moscow restaurant. It seemed like the definitive end, but what happened next showed where his true power lay. On July 18, 2005, a jury acquitted him of all charges. The reason was astonishing. Key witnesses, including a police officer who was at the crime scene, took the stand and declared they remembered nothing, that they had never seen Ivankov before in their lives. One even claimed the killer was much taller than the short Yaponchik. The acquittal was a show of force. After a decade in an American prison, his influence in Russia remained intact, a shadow power capable of bending the state's judicial system. He had challenged American justice and survived. Now, he returned home to prove he was above Russian law. His legend was greater than ever, free and more powerful than ever. Ivankov took on his final role, that of a judge, an arbiter in the violent world of the underworld. It was a traditional role for a VOR icon of his status, but the game had changed. He became embroiled in a bloody war between two of the most powerful clans in the post-Soviet space, that of Aslam Grandpa Hassan Usoyan and that of Tariel Onioni. They were fighting for control of drug trafficking routes and illegal gambling businesses. Ivankov's role was to be neutral, to mediate to prevent a bloodbath, but he made a fatal mistake. He broke the sacred neutrality of a judge and took the side of his old ally, Grandpa Hassan. He ceased to be an arbiter and became a combatant. The death sentence was signed. The order to kill him came from a rival mobster, Ilya Simonia, acting on behalf of the Oniani clan. The motive was cold, corporate, to redistribute the spheres of influence in the criminal world. And so, on July 28, 2009, the circle closed. As he left the Thai Elephant restaurant, the sniper's bullet found him. He fought for his life for 73 days, but finally, on October 9th, the last thief-in-law died. The funeral of Viatcheslav Ivankov on October 13, 2009, was a spectacle, a media event that demonstrated his mythical status. Hundreds of mobsters from all over the former Soviet Union came to pay their respects, a final show of loyalty to the old king. Reeds arrived with messages from the Bratva of Dagestan, from the Bratva of Kazakhstan. The largest and most elaborate was a gift from his powerful ally, Grandpa Hassan. His death left a power vacuum that was quickly filled by larger, more modern organizations, like the Solntsevskaya. The old world of the Vori was over. Yaponchik's legacy is a contradiction. He was a real and brutal criminal, but also a myth inflated by the media and the FBI. He was the bridge between two eras, that of the ideological VOR, who lived by a code, and that of the modern Bratva, who lived for money. His death was more than the end of a man. It was the end of an era. The image that endures is that of an enigma, a killer with a code of honor, a godfather created by his enemies, and, for better or for worse, the last and most famous thief in law. Thank you for staying until the end. Behind every video are hours of research to bring you the complete story. If you value that effort, the best way to support us is by leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. See you in the next investigation.